there's that aspect of the invisible side of it that I feel like always kind of needs to be mentioned, because I feel like we can fool ourselves too.
Mm-hmm.
So, because it's not just that it's invisible to other people, but I look in the mirror and I think, I look like I'm doing fine. What is wrong with me?
Yeah. Well, and it's like, you like say you break a leg, like it physically stops you, right? Concussions, you can feel like you're about ready to die and still like speak and walk and like look normal in so many cases. And it's like, it makes it easier sometimes, at least for me in the beginning. Like I would just push through a lot, partly because I wasn't cognitively there enough to like, hey, I'm really doing bad. Maybe I should stop. Like it wasn't like I wasn't cognitively there and like it didn't occur to me, but no one in my life picked up on it because I looked so normal. And I think that was a really, really hard part of it. Or even when I got into it, there were certain people that I just didn't want to be around because I felt like I always had like, I used to call it like I always felt like I was in the twilight zone. Like they would talk to me as if it just didn't exist. And it was such a huge part of every single moment of my day. And I always felt like not totally seen or not totally heard or believed. And I think when we talk about thinking of ourselves as a pie, that was a big piece of my pie back then, that I really needed to learn how to address and learn to share with people that had earned the right to hear my stories. The Brene Brown quote that I liked: learn to set boundaries, which I was not any good at, learn to say no. But it kind of came because if I didn't start to do those things, I was just not doing well. And I didn't know where that was going to lead me. So it was like, you had to, but then that's this whole other aspect that people have to navigate with the brain injury, with not fully understanding what's happening. And then all of a sudden you need to explain it to other people to make them feel better about it. It's just like, it's a lot. So I think what you do, or just getting with like support people in your area or online or with whatever it might be, is a super helpful part as well.
Yeah, and what you do as well
Yeah.
makes such a huge impact, because nowadays when somebody has a brain injury, they search on social media and they
Yeah, which is
find
crazy.
information and
Yeah.
it's right there, and that was not accessible
Yeah. It didn't exist for
before.
me either.
So,
So,
yeah, I'm just so grateful for what you do in sharing your expertise and helping to break down brain injury symptoms in a way that is digestible, pieces easy to understand, because you're a survivor, so you know how the information needs to be broken down to explain it in a way that we can learn from. So
yeah. And
thank
like
you for that.
everything on Instagram and Encompass is literally made for people with concussion symptoms. So, like the font choices, the colors, the spacing, like everything is incredibly intentional in the program. Like the video, you're never going to see a video longer than 10 minutes. Most of them you can listen to like a podcast. I never get to wear my striped clothes anymore because like I literally will wear solids during those kind of things. So, yeah, it's important to be with people who understand the way you're processing right now and give you avenues to be successful with it, because that's part of it too.
Yeah. Thank you so much for what you do and for sharing and breaking down some of these symptoms and ideas for us today on the podcast. Before you go, want to ask you, what is a final word of encouragement or hope that you would have for our listeners?
I would just give it almost like a call to action, for anyone who's feeling like stuck or like they're not getting anywhere or frustrated with their current circumstance. Um, the ability of your body to recover given the circumstances, so many of which you can, do on your own, like literally like nutrition, learning how to exercise, right? Like there's such like low hanging fruit that no matter where you are, everyone can learn to do on their own. And so I would just say, really know that if you're not in a place that you want to be, that there is hope. And I used to have a practitioner that would say, a year is going to come and go no matter what. Because I said, I don't know if I can do this for another year. He's like, well, a year is going to come and go no matter what. So where do you want to be when it does? And I always think of that whenever I feel stuck, of like, okay, this isn't where I want to be. It feels really heavy, but what can I do like today? And sometimes that's nothing. Sometimes that's like lay. Sometimes I wallow a little bit. Sometimes it's like getting outside. Sometimes it's making an appointment. It can be any of those things. So I don't want people to think it has to be like militant, because it's not. But really commit to yourself in whatever that looks like for you. And changes are possible.
That is so good. Commit to yourself. Oh, I need that on a poster. It's so good because I find, with brain injury symptoms, like you want change. I want change. I don't want my life to be like this. I don't want to keep dealing with this. But in order for that to happen, boundaries are going to need to be set. Changes are going to need to be made. It's not going to just happen.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you got to do it. And it's like, if something's not working for you, you're not going to get to where you want to go by doing all the exact same things still. There's some like reel going around Instagram right now that's all about like, no one's coming to save you. Like, there are going to be people to help you. There's going to be people to support you. There's going to be people to guide you, but like, you have to do it. And so, yeah, just commit to yourselves.
Yeah. And often, like you were talking about, it's doing less is the changes that we need to make as survivors, is not necessarily doing more and like adding in a morning routine. Because, I used to think, oh, that's so much like something to add. But what you're really doing is you're subtracting, you're adding, you're putting in space and taking away a lot of the distractions and maybe the commitments that you don't need right now. And so any changes that you want to make on your recovery journey is going to be something that's better for your brain and better for your nervous system and better for you. And so we're not talking like making changes in a way that's going to be highly stressful. It might be there's going to be an adjustment, but a little bit at a time can make a big difference. Like, Molly, I just bringing it back to what you said at the beginning about your morning routine and how that helps you manage your symptoms, and how at the minimum you do like an hour without your phone, but other days you add in other things, and it depends on how you're feeling that day.
Exactly. That's so funny you said that. And I'm really glad you did, because I was talking with a friend and she's like, was struggling with some things. She's like, I'm exercising and I'm eating well and I'm doing this and I'm doing this and then I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And finally she was like, what I needed to do was nothing. Like, she was like, that in itself felt so like doing all the right things felt so overwhelming that she was like, and so it's kind of like exactly what you said. What does it feel like in your body? The whole goal is to support your nervous system. So if you're super on edge or overwhelmed to paralysis, that's not the goal. Like, always go back to the goal and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, I love it. I had a day this week that I really crushed out my symptoms. And I felt like I was doing all the right things. I got up and I exercised. And part of my issues is autonomic. So it's important for me to like walk and get exercise in. And so, I exercised and I made a green smoothie and I showered and I did my work, but I worked for too long. I didn't chunk it up right. And I didn't take enough breaks. And I was working on my computer and I just was on a roll and I just kept pushing and then I crashed. And I was no good for the next morning, the next day. And so I just started seeing a new chiropractor who's a neurological chiropractor. And he said, Cristabelle, you have all the right ingredients. You're just putting them in the wrong order.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I thought that was so nice how he said that, because I thought to myself, like, yes, exercise is one of the right ingredients. But maybe I shouldn't have, worked for so long or exercised for so long. Maybe I work for 45 minutes and then I do a short walk. Then I work again for a little bit and then I add in, do some of my other neurological exercises and my vision exercises. And so basically you might have the right ingredients or the right things that you're doing, but sometimes it's just you're doing it too much at once.
Yeah, I love that. I love thinking it like a recipe like that, or kind of like a whole picture. Like, because even think like someone's like, okay, I did a little OT and it helped, but I'm struggling. And then I did a little PT and it helped, but I was struggling. And I was like, well, what if you like mixed those things together? Or, it's all about like, how are you putting it together to support you? And I just think like as a whole, that can be like our takeaway from this. So, it's like, how is it all comprehensively working for you? Rather than feeling like it's like this one thing, or I have to do this in this order, or like you said, I did all these great things. It was,
Yeah. I realized it's too much for me to do 10 minutes on the treadmill and to do my vision exercises at the same time. I mean, I'm not while I'm on the treadmill, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I meant like, one after the other.
Yeah.
It's too much. So, breaking those up throughout the day. And yes, I'm supposed to do them, but it might seem more intuitive to get it all done in the morning, but that's not going to work for everyone. And so back to that whole unique thing, right? You are unique. Your symptoms are unique. Your brain and body's needs are unique, and it might vary day by day, but doing what you need to do for yourself. I think, Molly, you set a great example of that. So thank you for that.
I try. And it's never going to be perfect, but like, there's a lot of ways that you can do it to rebuild for sure.
Yeah. Through your darkest night, hope survives.